Joined now by Dr. Camilla Forkosh-Levan, a practicing psychologist and business consultant, joining us live from Jerusalem. Dr. Camilla, thank you for being with us on I-24 News again. It's great to see you, especially during such an emotional day, because as we've been discussing here in studio, on the one hand, it is more of a joyous day. We're seeing these three men come back alive, standing on their 2 feet. We're already seeing the initial images of them reuniting with their families, but it is an incredibly emotional day as well. And so before we even get into their condition, for everyone watching throughout today, how can they begin to cope with the different emotions that they've been feeling?
First of all, thank you for having me again and just covering these kinds of news and bringing in the psychological aspect. As you know, I love you all for that. It's very, very important because as you mentioned, we're all involved here. Of course, the families are involved much closer in the first circle, but we're all being touched and worldwide, right? Like we talked about this last time as well, we're all somehow related to somebody. Everyone knows each other somehow, and we're all also, even with the news saying, travel, when you travel, don't use Hebrew or something like that, or make sure that no one knows you're Jewish. It's this throwback to our grandparents, which didn't happen that long ago, and somehow people forgot. And this misconception or misconstruction of the whole reality of what's happening politically and economically and like geopolitically and who's owning what and who came first and all that stuff in the middle. At the end of the day, here we are on October 7th, and then it's still continuing, right? Where people were afraid who's going to come into their houses and how are you going to go to sleep. So this is something that's very, very real and very raw for all of us. So every time, the hostages are being released, in a way we're being released a little bit on one hand. On the other hand, I think it's just highlighting the danger we're in. Yeah, and it's a very serious one.
It certainly is. And for these men as well, for everyone in the Israeli public, for the past 16 months, they've began to understand exactly what has happened since October 7th. But for these three men, some of them are finding out for the first time today, after 16 months in captivity, that some of their family members didn't make it. Sasha Trufanov, for example, he just found out that his father was killed on October 7th. Yair Horn, his brother, Eitan, is still in captivity. And so for them to come back to that reality, what type of a psychological toll does it take on top of everything that they've just experienced in captivity?
They will definitely have to be held emotionally, psychologically, physically. Even sometimes we have to watch for survivor's guilt. We mentioned that a little bit before in our interviews, and I do welcome, by the way, the viewers to watch through some of our interviews for the psychological part, because it might actually help and they might reach out to for assistance. But survivor's guilt is something that's very, very prominent, especially for a person that's coming out of such a stressful situation. This is something that we're facing that's rare, actually. For so long they've been held and in such isolation, and as we also already know, there was a lot of psychological games that were being played with them, and also they were being used to play with the rest of their family and with the rest of us as a community, right? So and it's been designed in a very smart, in a very cunning kind of painful way that actually works, yes? So it did catch us, but they were in there. They went through things we have no idea what they are and cannot imagine, and should we never really be able to understand, yes? So what I'm saying is that they do need the privacy, they do need the assistance. Things will come out in batches. Sometimes maybe even years later on, they will all of a sudden start to be able to be more comfortable and more safe to talk about certain things, and that's okay, right? So the only thing that we do need to watch for is the survivor's guilt and potential suicidality, so that if it comes up, to actually talk about it and maybe even talk about it ahead of time and normalize it, so it doesn't scare them. Meaning it's a very, very frightening experience, but if a person is aware, then there's an ability to hold it, to understand that it's just a symptom. It's not what they really want, even though it feels that way.
And so for some of these friends, some of these family members that are reuniting with these three men for the first time, how can they begin to help them reestablish their life here in Israel?
A beautiful question. It's very important to not crowd them, okay? Meaning do reach out, but then don't crowd. Sometimes it's a fine line. So like you can, call them up and be like, do you want to go for a beer? And maybe they don't want to, and that's okay. Maybe they don't want to today. Maybe they'll want to on Tuesday, right? Or maybe they don't want to go for a beer. They don't want to go outside yet. They're not ready. It's too blinding, all this light and freedom, right? Maybe they want a quiet coffee at home. Like, be flexible and be very sensitive. Try not to put your own anxiety and your own over maybe excitement or happiness or whatever. Like, do put it there, but also with sensitivity, so they don't have to now end up holding you. If you understand, like sometimes someone that's in trouble or something happens to them, the people around them get so emotional that all of a sudden now this person that's been traumatized has to calm them down. So like, watch for that. And if you need to, do go, which I think you will need to as a family member or someone that's close, go to your own therapy as well. And we will help you with different tools on how to manage your own feelings around all of that, which could be very, very strong sometimes.
It's important to just talk about it, and anyone that needs the help to get the help that they need, because it is such an emotional and difficult time. And Kamila, as we're talking, it is still a positive day, as we mentioned today, to see these 3 men return home. But unfortunately, in the coming weeks, we know that there are more people set to be released, 8 of them to be coming back dead after their time in captivity. The Israeli public, as difficult as it's been for these past several weeks, how can they begin to prepare for a day like that, something that many people have been dreading, but know that it is going to be coming?
Honestly, I don't just like sugarcoat too much. Honestly, there is no way to really, really prepare for something like that, especially for the family members, because it will hit them as it happens. I think the way to prepare for that is to understand that, meaning do understand that we're still hopeful that they're alive, first of all. So let's just keep it till then. But plan B, just in case, do prepare in terms of who is your circle of support. There are those people that some you're able to relax with and just be quiet with, or just cry it out with, or whatever, that they know how to hold that pain. Reach out to them just in case, to be there, like a comfortable pair of slippers. I don't mean that people are like that, but I mean like that, something that just brings you comfort. That's it, that you don't have to hold them, that they can hold you. Okay, and that does include actually the comfortable pair of slippers or pajamas or whatever it is that you will need for yourself, or like setting off time from work ahead of time to talk to your employers, to be like, I do not know if I will be functional. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I do reserve the right to not come, so they can prepare ahead of time without too much explanation. So you can just call up and say, or text and say, I'm not coming, and they won't ask you why. Because at that time, you might not be able to, or not need to, not have the energy. So save that energy for yourself to lick the wounds, kind of a thing. Prepare that little nest ahead of time of just in case, so that people don't need the extra explanation. So you can just have them there for you.
This is such important tips and such an important conversation to have as well. Dr. Kamila Forkash-Lavan, thank you for joining us and breaking down exactly what people can do to help themselves as well during this difficult time. Dr. Kamila Forkash-Lavan, thank you.
Thank you so much.